So now we're going to go over the use of context clues, which will be very valuable when you are doing your reading context questions or the vocabulary questions that occur at the end of the reading test. So the first clue is definition or synonym clue. So sometimes in a particular sentence in a piece of writing, it explicitly says a definition or synonym. And serves as a context clue within that sentence. So it simply tells the reader what the word means. So sometimes this will be introduced when the sentence says defined as or means or is known. So, for example, textbooks commonly bold or put words in italic when they want to explain what it means. Now, in the following examples, there's many examples. So, the first one, deceptive advertising is defined as an ad that contains misrepresentation, omission, or other practice. So, notice that define. So we know that deceptive advertising define or means this here. Okay. The next one is an important aspect of tort law involves product liability. And notice that there's a dash here. This dash implies that the next part is the meaning. Okay. Now, victimless crimes. Notice I say is the term for crimes. Is the term is saying that is defined as. So victimless crimes is crimes in which the offender's legal actions do damage themselves rather than others. Okay. The next one, so virtually every business transaction is carried out by means of a contract. Now notice that you see a comma here. This comma indicates the meaning. So a contract, a mutual agreement between parties that can be enforced in court if one party chooses not to comply. Okay. And then the last one is the death penalty or capital punishment. So notice that what's in the parentheses is the definition of death penalty. The next definition or synonym clue refers specifically to synonyms, which are words or phrases that mean similar or the same thing. So authors usually introduce a synonym with or, in other words, that is, by this we mean to say, and also as known as. Okay. So, for example, in this sentence, a last resort for individuals or business cannot fulfill their financial obligations is bankruptcy, comma, or legal insolvency. So bankruptcy and legal insolvency means the same thing. The same thing with Masters of Business Administration. Notice that there's parentheses MBA. So MBA is shortened to mean Masters of Business Administration. They're synonymous. And then finally, this one is a little interesting because the White House announced today that it plans to lower taxes. So the White House is a building, and it doesn't necessarily mean the building is saying that. In America, the White House refers to the president. So the president announced today that it plans to lower taxes, for example. Now the next one is contrast clue. Now a contrast clue basically means the opposite of the word you are trying to figure out. So the important parts is that you need to identify the transition words like but, however, on the other hand, nevertheless, in contrast, some, others. And what happens is whatever happens after that word is the opposite. So let's take a look at our example here. So unscrupulous. Few advertisers are unscrupulous, okay, but most are honest. So what it means is that unscrupulous is the opposite of honest because of the but. Okay. Now the next one is an example clue. before I move on, so unscrupulous means dishonest, not following ethical principles. Okay. So the example clue is when the author includes examples to illustrate the meaning of an unfamiliar word. Now, they'll generally use for example, to illustrate, for instance, and like in order to identify that they're using these examples to sort of help you understand the word. Now, it's important that the example is not the same as the definition. So if you use the example as a definition, it'll probably not work on your test. But it's supposed to help you to reason out the meaning of the word. So in this particular example, we're talking about carbohydrates. So many Americans include too many servings of potatoes, rice, pasta, bread, and other carbohydrates in their diet. So what is this saying? So carbohydrates we have here, and these are examples of carbohydrates. So carbohydrates, potatoes, rice, pasta are examples of starches. So carbohydrates are starches, okay? So the examples are to help you get to the starches here. So if these are carbohydrates, then that means these are starches. Now, clue 4 is getting the general sense of the sentence, okay? Now, what you can do is you can ask yourself, what does this word mean in order for the sentence to make sense, okay? And it usually requires you to draw on information that you already know to help you answer the question, okay? So for example, for the word equestrian. So the Equestrian Center received a donation of 25 horses, as well as saddles and other new equipment for the riding team. So if we put these other words, horses, saddles, equipment, riding team, we can kind of get the idea that equestrian has something to do with horses or horseback riding. And as you can see, that's what it does mean. Now the last clue is finding the clue from another sentence, which is going to be an important one that you're going to have to figure out too. So sometimes the information to get the reference is in another sentence in the paragraph. And it can occur before or after the unknown word, okay? So it's important that you keep on reading, but also when you get back to the word that you read before and after if you can't figure out the word right off the bat. So when we take a look at this, we're going to take a look at the word ribald and read this paragraph here. That comedian has a ribald sense of humor. So 2 television networks have canceled his show because viewers complain about his lewd language and vulgar jokes. Okay. Now notice we say sense of humor and then there's jokes here, which are basically the same thing, sense of humor and jokes. So we can kind of get the idea that ribald and vulgar mean the same thing. Okay. So ribald basically means vulgar, coarse, or off color. All right. So now take a few minutes to go to do the practice below. Pause this, and then I will go over the answers. Okay. All right. So number 1, introverts refer to solitary actions, whereas extroverts prefer to activities involving other people. Notice we have the word whereas. So solitary means the opposite of this. So the answer must be done alone. Okay? 2, we're looking for the definition of malicious. So mean-spirited people enjoy spreading malicious gossip. The rumors they spread damage the victim's reputation and unfairly and cause them underserved pain. So all of these are really great context clues. So we have pain, we have mean-spirited. Now if we take a look at this, we know that cheerful doesn't work, we know that unproven doesn't work, interesting doesn't work. The only one is harmful. which matches pain. Okay, from manic. The manic pace of Saigon is evident within the streets, where swarms of motorbikes zip through the intersections. So we have manic, we have swarms, and we have zip. These are all words that are fast-paced, lots of them. So is it happy, upbeat? No. Violent, destructive? No. Leisurely, relaxed? No. It has to be excessive activity and intense. 4. The cast of the television series is currently enjoying a 3-month hiatus, but they will start work again in the fall. So notice we have the but here. So a hiatus is the opposite of working. So is it call? No. Probation? No. Strike? It could be, but they're saying enjoying a 3-month hiatus. So really, a break would fit better here. Number 5, but what is most remarkable of golfer Tiger Woods is his relentless drive for what the Japanese call kaizen, or continuous improvement. This is really easy because you notice the or, which means that this word, continuous improvement, is the same definition of a kaizen. So it's continuous improvement. 6, at the embassy reception, the diplomat's wife made an embarrassing faux pas when she addressed the Prime Minister's secretary as Prime Minister. So she made a mistake, right? An embarrassing mistake. Because when she addressed, so is it an international incident? No, it's a mistake. Is it a legal action? No. Is it a grammatical mistake? That doesn't necessarily fit because it's embarrassing. So the embarrassing is more social, so it's a social error. All right, number 7. The difference between a good athlete and a great one is simply tenacity. The great ones have a steadfast persistence in pursuing their goals and that makes them champions. So with this one, tenacity means, you notice steadfast and persistent. So really, it means persistent, or doesn't give up, or keeps going. Okay. Number 8. Most illnesses last for a relatively short, limited period of time. Okay. Yet, nearly 3/4 of all deaths among 18 and older are the result of chronic diseases. So what is chronic? So we have yet, so whatever it is the opposite. So limited period of time. The opposite of limited period of time is long-lasting. Okay. Number 9, some crimes of violence are premeditated. So premeditated. Others are crimes of passion committed on impulse or the emotion of the moment. So our keywords here are impulse and emotion of the moment. And notice we have others. So this means it's the opposite. Premeditated means it's not an impulse, it's not an emotion of the moment, it is planned. All right, 10. Many countries hold referendums so voters can decide local issues. So keys, decide. Voters are deciding. So really, referendums mean a vote. Or a poll. Okay. 11. There are several psychological explanations from the compulsive, non-stop talker's need to monopolize every conversation. Okay? So we're trying to figure out monopolize. Compulsive non-talkers need to monopolize every conversation. So we know that they're not stopping to talk. So that means that they're in control or they take over the conversation. Okay, 12. After listening to a classmate's speech, you could give constructive criticism. Unless your criticism provides suggestion for improvement, the recipient will not be able to make progress. So for this one, constructive means improvement criticism. Okay, or development. Okay, 13. An old adage is that an old adage is that every beginning piano player should remember is practice makes perfect. So adage means practice makes perfect. Practice makes perfect is a saying or a expression. Okay. 14. The company's president Sutton's resignation caused precipitous decline in stock prices and huge financial losses for investors. What do stock prices do? They rise and they fall. So it fell, right? So it fell really quickly or sharply. Okay. So 15. Twins are extremely talented and intelligent. One has aspirations for obtaining a master's degree and becoming a social worker. The other has aspirations of becoming a concert pianist. So aspirations, these are examples. Becoming a social worker, becoming a concert pianist. So what do you think it is? It is a goal or career goal or life goal. Okay. Go ahead and pause this video and take a look at the, well, actually, I'll go ahead and go over. So injunction, so the ever-widening gap between Shakespeare's meaning of what audience now take to be his meaning of a well illustrated by Hamlet's famous injunction to Ophelia, get thee to a nunnery. So injunction and this are the same thing. So what do you think it could be? It could be a statement, or it looks like you see the explanation part, he's yelling it. So saying something with force, yelling. Okay. Get thee to a nunnery. So what do you think a nunnery is? Well, these words are retort when a pure young Ophelia declares his pure and young. This is an important distinction here. Ophelia declares her love for him. Most audience today think that a nunnery was referred to a convent, and that Hamlet is suggesting that she lock herself away in a religious institution and never marry. In reality, audiences of Shakespeare's time knew that at once a nunnery was slang for a whorehouse or a house of prostitution. So what this means is that a retort could be are saying sort of like the opposite, words of the opposite nature, for example. Then if we take a look, because pure and young and whorehouse are sort of opposite. So he's saying something mean, he's saying something opposite. These words are Hamlet's retort, so he's saying something to her when she declares her love for him. Okay? Now, let's go ahead and read on. Thus, so what we'll say is response. Okay? And the next thing, thus, in this famous rejection scene, or it could be a rejection too. Notice there's a rejection. So rejection, because he's basically rejecting if he's saying that she should go to a whorehouse. So rejection response. Ooh. Excuse me. Let's find it. Rejection response. Thus, the famous rejection scene the way Hamlet spurns Ophelia is much more cruel than the audience realizes. So spurns means, so what do you think? Spurn could be response or statement as well. The way in which Hamlet responds to spurns. Does this is a verb, so it does something mean to Ophelia. It's much more cruel than audiences realize. So just to make sure, let's go ahead and take a look at the dictionary. You're not going to be able to do this, but all right. So injunction, authoritative warning or order, saying something with force. We put there, that fits. Okay. How about retort? Retort, saying something to answer a remark or accusation. That's pretty close. Yeah. Typically saying in a sharp, angry, witty, inclusive manner. Okay. So to make this better, you could probably put rejection. You could put angry, and finally spurns. Reject with disdain or contempt. Do something mean. That kind of fits there. Okay. All right. So hopefully this helps with the context. Good luck.